I think there are a lot of hidden costs behind like making money from your art. And the biggest one that people I feel like often don't talk about is that instead of an expression, you start creating products. And for me, that sounds more like business than art. I come from a school system in Switzerland where my education is as good as none. I actually quit school to start working. I was a DJ. This was almost 20 years ago. I burnt that all down to move to New York City, where I did the starving artist thing for a few years. And this is also one of the points in the video that I want to make, which is that this isn't even an option anymore. So back in the day, I was paying $600 rent for a room. First I lived in Bed-Stuy, then I lived in Bushwick. This was in like 2009 to 2015. I was living really, really cheap in ways that we just don't have anymore. Like, find me a room for $600 in those areas. So back then I was able to work part-time because I was focusing mostly on producing music, writing music, and after a while that also became not an option anymore, and I burnt down my whole music career, which was very small, but still I had something going for myself, and I just completely stopped making music. It had more to do with how I was making music, which was I was trying to monetize everything. Because of my educational background, I was putting all of my eggs into a basket called being a full-time artist, and that put so much pressure on every single thought that I had around making music, producing music. It came to a point where the music that I was producing myself was completely different from the music that I was releasing, because I thought that my music was too weird. And I wasn't really consciously aware of this at the time, but subconsciously I was like rejecting it. I was like, this is too weird. Even though it feels good for me to create, no one's gonna listen to this, and no one's gonna pay for this, and nobody's gonna buy it, and I'm not gonna have any commercial success. So I immediately rejected my authentic style and instead focused on songwriting, which somehow I was able to parrot, let's say, a type of style that I knew was going to be deemed more like mainstream commercially acceptable than my weird shit that I was producing. So everything that I released, I hated. I hated all of the music that I was releasing, and that's why I stopped making music, because I rejected my authentic expressions. I rejected who I actually really am because of capitalism and forcing your art to pay your bills. And I actually did get to a point where I did make some money with songwriting, but again, I hated everything I created. So I literally stopped for 10 years, and I went through this really, really strange, dark period. And here is where deconstruction enters the chat. To me, it's what actually saved my art. And it's not just about music. It's not just about capitalism. It was also for me coming out. So I was very, very, very deep in the closet during my 20s. And coming out in my 30s was really, really major. And that's also part of the process of accepting all parts of me, especially the ones that are unconventional, especially the ones that are more eccentric and not very mainstream. So the biggest thing is like I deconstructed capitalism, I deconstructed patriarchy. What am I doing now? How am I finding, once again, a middle ground? The same as with social media, right? Like with social media, I'm trying to find formats that are enjoyable to me. I'm trying new things and just trying how things feel to me. And when it comes to how I was able to come back to music after 10 years and why I'm no longer trying to monetize my art, getting some kind of a day job that just paid the bills unfortunately did really help. And I was very much rejecting that for like my entire life. And I hate to be that person to say this, because I hated everyone who always told me this while I was like a starving artist. But coming out of survival mode was really necessary for me to stop rejecting the parts that were not deemed sellable, that were not deemed you know, likely to be successful, like all whatever the fuck society tells us. Right, Bubbly? Yeah. Coming out of survival mode was key for me to deconstruct, to question everything, to unfuck my brain from capitalism, to unfuck my brain from patriarchal conditioning, which unfortunately it just affects me. I'm a fucking person. And then the middle ground that I'm finding with monetizing art, or not monetizing art rather, is that I could see myself doing things like DJing again. It used to be part of my income. And I kind of compartmentalize that the same way as I compartmentalize social media. It's kind of connected to, it's obviously very creative to be a DJ, but it's very separate from me producing music and just making whatever weird shit that I make. So that is kind of a middle ground that I'm exploring right now, is getting back into DJing. And you know, that way if you see me plugging my music like here on YouTube or anywhere in the internet, if you see me like plugging my EP, like my ambient music, it comes from a place of just like, oh, by the way, you know, if you enjoy ambient music, try this. And it doesn't come from a place of like, please listen to it. Like, I don't really care if anybody listens to my weird ambient music, or if they do. Of course, it's nice if somebody has the same kind of shared love for ambient music, but it's not like a necessity anymore. It's a nice to have. It's an added bonus because I'm genuinely just producing because that's what I do. And that comes with a huge kind of freedom that I really needed. I need that kind of freedom to just be creative. That's the whole point of making art to me, is that I can be creatively free and not give a shit if anyone likes it. Thank you so much for all the comments under my last video. If anything here resonates, then yeah, please comment again. It was really fun to talk to anyone who wanted to. And thank you so much for being here. Bye!